Scribes and facilitators, the correct language you need to be reposting is in the chat.
From 2011 to 2015, the Wayne County Treasurer foreclosed upon approximately 1 in 4 Detroit properties for non-payment of property taxes. Once the properties were foreclosed, many were left vacant, many were vandalized, and stripped of everything of value. These derelict properties lowered property values and caused anyone who could get out to flee. The property tax foreclosure crisis in Detroit has wiped out entire neighborhoods of Detroit's most vulnerable residents. Poor and working class Black families have borne the brunt of this crisis, and it should not have happened. According to the Michigan Constitution, no property should be assessed at more than 50% of its market value. It turns out, the city government systematically inflated the property tax assessments of homes in Detroit beyond this legal limit. In fact, between 2009 and 2015, 55 to 85% of Detroit properties were unconstitutionally assessed each year. This led to illegally inflated taxes on those properties. Why? Because in 2008, home values in Detroit plummeted as a result of the Great Recession. But instead of reducing property tax assessments to match the lower value of homes, the government robotically copied the previous rates, making only minor adjustments. It was no surprise that residents weren't able to pay. And here's the kicker. Many families were not supposed to be paying property taxes in the first place because they qualify for the Michigan Poverty Tax Exemption. But Detroit didn't publicize this and made the application process so difficult that it was nearly impossible to complete. So when we look at the decimation that unconstitutional property tax assessments have left behind, who is to blame? Working and poor people who are struggling to provide a home for their families? Or the government, who systematically and illegally inflated the assessed values of homes to increase their property tax revenue, then seized homes from families when they could not afford to pay? Join our fight to end unconstitutional tax foreclosures in Detroit.
The Coalition for Property Tax Justice would like to thank the following members: Bridging Communities, Community Development Advocates of Detroit, Central Detroit Christian Community Development, Detroit Block Works, Detroit Justice Center, Detroit Jews for Justice, Dream of Detroit, Detroit Action, Mack Avenue Community Church, Moses, Neighbors Building Brightmoor, Regrid, Street Democracy, Eastside Community Network, We the People of Detroit, and New Era Detroit. Thank you for your partnership.
Foreclosure affected my home. It put a looming tension and doubt in the house. It took our happiness away for a second, a good amount of time. It's so heavy, it damaged my health. It broke me a little, but I'm back now, and I'm ready now. This house sold for $3,750. I'm surprised it didn't sell for less. I think that my house is worth between $500 to $1,000. So the assessor says my house is worth $22,000. That is severely incorrect. When you go to buy a house, you look at not just the house, but the things surrounding your house, the neighborhood in general. Everything around us is falling apart. There are abandoned houses all down my block on each side. I need siding on the right side of my house. My roof has holes in it. The sewer system, the plumbing. We have a flood in the basement every time it rains, every time. Being illegally assessed makes me so angry. I knew it was wrong. I did not know it was in the Constitution, Michigan's Constitution, but I knew it wasn't right. Detroit is 80% Black. It feels like the same type of injustice that is happening so many other places, whether it be getting pulled over because driving while Black, any of those things, it's the same thing, just hidden better. I learned about the poverty tax exemption through hearsay. And I'm like, we have to be eligible for this. But everyone I asked about it at every one of these buildings in downtown Detroit either didn't know about it at all or sent me to one place that sent me to another, and I got nowhere. So it makes me angry. But at the same time, they started something. They don't know what they started, and we're about to finish it. Dear Mr. Mayor, come talk to us. This neighborhood they consider so bad. Come to the neighborhoods that are the hardest hit. I want to see the city of Detroit take responsibility. We're talking about over 100,000 people that lost their homes. We're not doing this to ourselves. This is not laziness. So I want to see people get help. I want help, but I want to see other people get help.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome on this glorious Saturday morning. Welcome to the Coalition for Property Tax Justice People's Forum. We have so many folks coming in. We're about to surpass 400 people right now. Keep coming, keep coming. Welcome. We're so glad to have you. My name is Michelle Johnson, also known as MJ for today. I am going to be your MC for this event. We want to welcome you guys. So excited to see your beautiful faces. Come on in, come on in. Absolutely. So we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. For this event, everyone is going to be muted. This avoids all sorts of, distractions and that sort of thing. So everyone will be muted. You will have an opportunity when we get to breakouts to let your voice be heard. Please follow the facilitators and the scribes' instructions when you get into the breakouts. But for now, everyone will be muted, okay? If you would like to view the program, there's two ways that you can do it. In the top right corner of your screen, there's a view option. You can either view it in speaker view, which gives you the one big view and you see the main person talking, or you can go into gallery view, and that way you can see everyone that's in the room. We want you to have a very strong sense of community. And so you can see everyone who has their video on in here, and we have now surpassed 400 people. Keep coming, keep coming. We want you guys also, introduce yourself in the chat. Do your roll call. Let folks know where you're coming from, what zip code, what city. Say hello to the folks in the room. Again, this is a community engagement space. We want you to feel comfortable conversating in the chat. And then there's going to be some opportunities for you to leave comments in the chat, and also to participate in some actions. I hate to have to say this part, but we do need to let folks know if there are any disruptors in the room who, wanted to cause a little bit of trouble, understand that you will be removed from the room immediately and you will not be able to come back in again. So that being said, it is my pleasure at this time to bring forth an amazing woman. She is Mary Sheffield. She is a native Detroiter, and in 2013, she became the youngest person ever elected to the Detroit City Council at the age of 26 to serve in District 5. In her time on the Detroit City Council, some of her most groundbreaking initiatives have included her monthly Conversations with the Councilwoman series, Occupy the Corner Detroit, Neighborhood Angels program, Homelessness Task Force, and monthly e-newsletter. Legislatively, she sponsored an inclusionary housing ordinance and is set to sponsor ordinances for citizen code enforcement and home repair grant funding. She is committed to building a new Detroit, but wants to also ensure the city remains committed to residents who stayed through the toughest of times. She feels privileged to stand on the shoulders of civil rights giants like her grandfather, Horace Sheffield Jr., founder of the Detroit Trade Union Labor Council, an important organization integral to ensuring the inclusion of African Americans in the UAW. She currently serves as the president of the Detroit City Council. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring forth the Honorable Mary Sheffield.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and good morning to everyone here today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on your Saturday for such an important issue that I believe touches so many people. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. I do want to first recognize all of my colleagues who I know are either on themselves or they have staff members that are representing them on today. So just want to shout out all of the city council members, both at large and district council members who have attended this forum today. And also before I start, I want to pause and recognize all of the organizations that were mentioned in the video earlier, all of our elected officials, our community groups, our residents who have really raised this issue, who have elevated this issue of overassessments throughout Detroit. I can tell you that I am in and out of community meetings and have worked with so many people on this issue. And it's not just me, it's not just the coalition, it is people throughout this entire city. And so I just want to pause to recognize so many people who have offered up solutions and who have been a part of solving this issue of overassessment. And I'm hoping that today we can come to a common goal of elevating those recommendations, those solutions, and coming to some solutions today to addressing this issue. So I just want to kind of start off with addressing, and it's not letting me go to the next slide. There we go. A little bit more about my history around the housing crisis and housing in Detroit, for those of you who may not know. So in 2014, when I took office, I have been laser focused on the issue of housing. In fact, most of my work in Detroit has been around housing. I have been laser focused on preventing tax foreclosures and solving the housing crisis in Detroit. I've also been very vocal about the need for tax reforms, assistance for residents, and also using hardest hit fund dollars to keep individuals in danger of losing their homes, and especially those who have been unconstitutionally assessed. And so just kind of a high level here of some of the housing legislation that I have passed and also are currently in the process of introducing to our current council. I sponsored the city's first ever inclusionary housing ordinance that essentially sets aside 20% of units in new housing for low-income housing. I created the city's first ever housing trust fund. This was the first fund that the city ever had that mandates that that the housing trust fund be used for housing at 50% AMI and below. So this is for our extremely low income families and residents throughout the city of Detroit. And then a lot of people know me, of course, as the councilwoman that will come to the table, always fighting for home repair grants. And especially at a time when the city was on the bark of losing our home repair grant program. There was a time where the city was proposing to eliminate the grant and change it into a loan. And I fought extremely hard to save our grant program. And in fact, every single year, that program has increased. And right now, we're actually at the highest that we've ever seen for home repair grants. And then also the Homeowner Property Tax Assistance Program, which is now known as the HOPE program. I was able to sponsor and codify a lot of the changes that the city had to make because of a settlement as it relates to making sure that this program is more accessible for residents to apply or for property tax exemptions if you are below the federal poverty level. And then also I sponsored and passed with my colleagues the NEZ, which is the Neighborhood Improvement Zone Ordinance Amendment. The City Council had not taken up the issue in over 10 years. And this is a property tax reduction for more of our middle income residents throughout Detroit, which we hear a lot of our middle class residents say, you know, what about us as well? We need to stay in our homes. We need property tax assistance as well too. And so we were able to re-examine and kind of shift the NEZ map to allow for more communities to have access to that. And then two of my favorite, I shouldn't say favorite, but two more legislation or proposals that are forthcoming that I'm excited about is right to counsel. And I'm glad to say that all of the council members that I have spoken with are excited about this. They are ready to support this initiative. And this is going to give free legal counsel to low-income families that are facing eviction, and that ordinance is forthcoming. And then lastly, the Detroit AMI. So I am excited to offer this ordinance up this year, which will essentially allow for city-funded projects to require that we use Detroit's AMI, because we know that a lot of the housing that we're setting aside in Detroit is not really based on the income levels of Detroiters. And so I'm excited to bring forth that ordinance as well. And then just a couple of resolutions that I have sponsored and that the council as a whole has unanimously supported both last term around housing. I put forth a resolution that urges the State Tax Commission to modify the methods of assessing residential properties. I'm sure that we're going to talk a little bit about today the issue of the continued overassessments in our lower value homes. I also put forth a resolution during the period when we were using Carter's HIT Fund dollars for demolition to reprogram a portion of that money to be used for foreclosure prevention. And then also put forth a resolution urging the administration to use the city's right of first refusal to purchase currently occupied properties from the Wayne County Treasurer's Office to prevent foreclosures. And then lastly, we also passed a resolution urging the county and the state to institute a moratorium on property tax foreclosures in Detroit until we solve this issue of the continued overassessment. So that's just a high level of some of the work that I've done to date with the support of my colleagues around the issue of housing. So why are we here? We talked a little bit about this early in the video. According to the Michigan Constitution, no property should be assessed at more than 50% of its market value. However, between 2009 and 2015, the city of Detroit assessed 55% to 85% of its properties in violation of the Michigan Constitution. And as a result of that, over 100,000 working families lost their homes, and many of our Detroit neighborhoods have been devastated. And what's unfortunate is a majority of the homes that actually were foreclosed upon or went through this foreclosure process would not have done so if it was not for the unconstitutional overassessment that took place. I also think it's important to mention that those who were foreclosed upon and were overassessed may have been eligible for the property tax exemption program, which was mentioned earlier, right? Which is a program that allows you to have your property taxes exempted if you fall below the federal poverty level. However, the city did not properly promote that program, and those who did apply, it was so burdensome, and a lot of people did not finish that exemption process. And then lastly, we all know, and a lot of us are here because in 2020, the news reported that Detroit homeowners were overtaxed roughly $600 million. And so I want everyone here to know, and those who are listening, my work began with the issue of overassessments and the continued assessments back in 2019. So this was actually before the news released its report that Detroit homeowners were taxed over $600 million. The coalition was actually formed back in 2017. I started to meet with them around 2018. They had extensive data on this issue of overassessments, and it caught my eye. I just couldn't believe that homeowners had been overassessed and the impact that it had in Detroit. And so we thought it was important to start a working group and begin to start to figure out how we can address this issue. And again, this was before the actual news had actually released that homeowners were overassessed. So in the spring of 2009, we got together to research, discuss, and evaluate potential compensation options for Detroit residents who were impacted by the unconstitutional property tax assessment. Some of the working group members were myself. We had the law department, the legislative policy division, housing and revitalization department, the Detroit Land Bank Authority, Cass Community Social Services, Southwest Economic Solution, and of course, we had the coalition who was present with us. So some of our key findings from that report, and I want this to be very clear, is our focus was on dignity restoration. We truly believe that the individual and communities should be in the driver's seat of the conversation, and allowing them to really have a menu of options to be able to choose what best fits their particular situation, because everybody, has been impacted differently from this crisis. And so the coalition's report details ways to compensate people through in-kind contributions, direct financial support, and other supportive services to help people recover from the crisis. I wanted to be very clear that we also did go into the study group or the working group with the idea of how can we provide direct compensation to residents, but we also were very clear that we understand the precarious finances that the city of Detroit has, the financial condition that we are in, and then also the legal challenges that we may face if we were to go the route of direct compensation. And so we really start to alter our research and begin to focus on how can we provide other options to address this issue of overassessment. And so we talked a lot about, free or discounted land bank homes. We talked about setting aside units in affordable housing projects or Section 8 vouchers for those who have lost their homes. We talked about small business development, possible employment compensation options. And one of my favorite that I really want to see happen is credits on your future tax bill in the amount that you were overassessed. So those were some of the key findings that we released. And that report, by the way, is public for those who are interested in looking at the full report. So after that report came out, then after that, there was a resolution that was submitted to the city council by the administration. That resolution pretty much, from the most part, entailed a lot of what the report recommended. From a programmatic standpoint, there were some changes or some differences that we didn't necessarily agree on, but a lot of the recommendations were from our report. There are two issues or two clauses that I want to highlight that I was able to add into that resolution. One of which is the idea of still exploring ways that we can compensate individuals, and that is through a state level task force to examine non-city funding sources to compensate individuals. And then also I continue to push that we add language, explore ways to offer tax credits for those who are currently struggling on their property taxes and were overassessed. So that was added to that resolution. However, if you all recall, that resolution was voted down by the city council last term. And the major areas of contention were around the dates that were proposed in that resolution, those who would have access to this program. And then also some believe that there was inadequate money that was set aside, that it did not go far enough. I think there was roughly about $6 million that was set aside for the program. And some believe, like myself, that we could have done a bit more. Lastly, I just want to mention the fight continues, and I'm sure Professor Bernadette is going to talk about the issue of the continued overassessments of our lowest value homes. And so after I was briefed by the University of Chicago for Municipal Finance and the coalition, and the data, is very clear, in my opinion, and I'm going to use my voice to elevate this issue, that our lowest value homes still to this day are being overassessed. And so while we're trying to compensate individuals who have been overassessed and lost their homes, we still need to lift up the fact that, and continue to look into the issue that our lowest value homes are still being overassessed. And so my office convened a meeting with the State Tax Commission, the Assessor's Office, the University of Chicago for Municipal Finance, and the Coalition to talk about how we can work towards changing state law to allow for alternative methods of assessing property that would eliminate future overassessments, and that work still continues. So that's just a kind of a high level of my work around this issue of overassessments. I do want you all to know that currently I did submit a memo to our law department into LPD to begin drafting another resolution and/or ordinance related to this issue. We do have new members who have all, again, expressed interest in this, who are ready to address this issue. And so I'm really here today to continue to listen to the community as we reshape and reintroduce another, alternative from what was presented before to hopefully begin to address this issue. So I want to thank you all for coming. And also the coalition will be launching a monthly coffee chat series on the first Saturday of each month to continue this conversation. Again, the foundation of our conversation has always been that this should be driven by those who have been impacted. And so we want to make sure that you all are a part of shaping the narrative and shaping this ordinance and/or resolution when it does come before council. So please join the first conversation series with myself. It will be held in District 5 on Saturday, February the 5th at the Commons, 7900 Mack Avenue in Detroit. And I'm sure that the coalition will have more information forthcoming. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining. That is my time. And I'm looking forward to the breakout sessions to hear more about what you all think this next proposal should look. And again, thank you to each and every one of my colleagues that are here as well. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, President Sheffield. Thank you. Everyone, I didn't say this, but this is how we show applause in Zoom. So feel free to put some snaps up for President Sheffield. Thank you for such dynamic leadership. I'm certain that District 5, Detroit, and Michigan as a whole is benefiting greatly from the work that you're doing. At this time, it is now my pleasure to bring forth the Honorable Rasheeda Talib. Rasheeda Talib is a well-known progressive warrior and, in her own words, a mother working for justice for all. Her two young sons are at the root of her unwavering passion to help change lives for the better. Rasheeda made history in 2008 by becoming the first Muslim woman to ever serve in the Michigan legislature. She is beloved by residents for the transformative constituent services she's provided, for successfully fighting the billionaires and corporations that tried to pollute her district, and for working tirelessly to knock down barriers for real change, whether by policy or action, no matter how big the challenge is. She's currently the Congresswoman for Michigan's 13th district, which includes the city of Detroit and many surrounding communities. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Rasheeda Talib.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Rasheeda Talib. Thank you so much to the Coalition for Property Tax Justice and our new Council President, Mary Sheffield, for organizing this important event and for your leadership in seeking justice for Detroiters who were impacted by the illegal assessments and foreclosures. And thank you to all of our residents who are with us today. You all should have never been put in this position. These overassessments were illegal, they were systemic, and they gutted out our neighborhoods. Know that you have partners who are never going to stop fighting for your rights and your human dignity. What's been taken from you can never truly be replaced, but we're going to work as hard as we can at every level of government to make sure that you are compensated to the fullest extent possible, and that this never happens to anyone again. Professor Bernadette's research has shown that between 2011 and 2015, 10% of all foreclosures in the city of Detroit happened because of these overassessments. 25% of those foreclosures were among our poorest due to the overassessment. So I want that to sink in. There is a human cost when government gets it wrong. Overassessment was fuel on our already harmful foreclosure crisis. I know maybe you were born here, maybe you moved here, but either way, you are part of Detroit. You are part of this city, and the city is part of you. We sign a social contract when we live here to be good neighbors to each other, to look out for each other, to try to help our city thrive. And in return, we don't ask for much. We just want reliable, trustworthy city services that give us the chance to live with a good quality of life. Overassessment is a violation of that social contract. I have worked years alongside Council President Sheffield in the coalition to get the mayor and the city to recognize that this problem has not been fixed by the 2017 reassessment. I've sent numerous letters to the mayor and the assessor showing them the data, attaching the studies that demonstrate that the poorest Detroiters are still suffering the most from overassessment. In spite of this evidence, the city maintains that they've solved the problem and that there's nothing wrong with those assessments. So it's clear we're going to have to take our own action. And that's why I'm so grateful to Councilwoman Sheffield has now been elected council president. Our coalition has now the best seat at the table. She sat down with you all and listened, and she understands the pain that's been caused and our duty to make reparations. The compensation ordinance is a key pathway to restoring dignity for so many of our neighbors in Detroit. We're tired of being given scraps and being told to be grateful while we see billions of dollars that go out the door to wealthy corporations every single year. We're done settling. No more hypothetical benefits, no more crumbs. This time we're coming for everything Detroiters deserve. And if you were illegally foreclosed on, we need to give you a new home and support to stay in it. If you were forced to sacrifice to pay illegally inflated property tax bills, we need to repay that sacrifice with money in your accounts. While we work at the city level, I'm also working in Washington, D.C. to make sure that this never happens again. I've met with the director and secretary, as well as Department of HUD officials from the White House and others to discuss the coalition's proposals for federal reforms that would help fix property tax administration. Because this is a national problem that we cannot continue to ignore. Most of all, I'm excited for the People's Forum today. The people of Detroit should ultimately be deciding what restoring their dignity looks like, and that the conversations and feedback we get today will go a long way towards making this compensation ordinance something that helps rebuild our people and our neighborhoods. So thank you to everyone who helped organize and everyone in attendance today. And I look forward to standing arm in arm with you all as we fight for justice. Thank you all so much again.
Snaps up, everyone. Thank you so much, Representative Talib, for your fearless leadership in the Michigan legislature. We thank you so much for those comments. At this time, and remember I told you guys that we are going to be doing some actions here. This isn't just about you watching, it's about engaging. And so at this time, we are going to initiate an action. What we're going to do, everyone's attention, is we are going to send a tweet to Mayor Duggan. A tweet to Mayor Duggan. We're going to do that right now. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the tweet to the mayor link that's in the chat box, and then you'll be redirected to Twitter, where you should hit post to publish that tweet. And just so that everybody knows, we are almost at 700 attendees right now, and we are streaming live on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Congratulations to you for making this a momentous event Definitely snaps up for that. So take the time now. We're going to give you just about 60 seconds to send out your tweet. Look for that link in the chat, and you are going to just click it. They make it really easy for you. Just click that and then post to Twitter. And thank you, everyone. Such a powerful, powerful conversation about dignity restoration that we're having. Just about 30 more seconds. And we'll have some more opportunities for actions throughout the event today, but thank you again for that. I see Ms. Seward, you're done, great. Gregory, done, great. Tanya, thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Just a few more moments. All righty. Sounds good. Okay, so we are going to move on with the program. At this time, it is my pleasure to bring forth Miss Sonia Bonnet. Sonia is a 42-year-old married mother of 6 and a lifelong Detroiter. She began her advocacy work helping parents of children with ADHD navigate the Detroit public school system, she herself having a child diagnosed with ADHD. While housing has always been a passion of hers, it wasn't until meeting Professor Atuahene and learning that her own home was being unconstitutionally foreclosed on that Sonia decided to join the fight. Sonia became director of the Dignity Restoration Housing Program, a process created by the coalition as a blueprint to the city showing that reparations are possible. They are possible. Sonia is a proud member of the Coalition for Property Tax Justice and a community legal advocate at the Detroit Justice Center, where her work surrounding overassessment focuses on the yearly appeal process and educating the masses about illegal overassessments through her personal story of loss and her work with the coalition. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure at this time to bring forth Ms. Sonia Bonnet.
Good morning, everyone. As I was introduced, my name is Sonia Bonnet. I am a proud member of the Coalition for Property Tax Justice and have been in this fight since the coalition's inception. I lost my home due to illegal and unconstitutional tax foreclosure. And today I want to speak to the community just to let you know that I'm proof that your voice can be heard. Since the coalition's inception, the work has been hard but diligent in moving the city to right this wrong and make us whole. When I lost my home, I didn't just lose a structure. I lost my health. I lost my footing. I lost confidence in myself. I think that the city really needs to know that when you put the community in these positions, you're not just taking a building from us. You're taking the American dream for us. You're taking what some of us were so proud to gain in the first place, which is a family home. And when it happened to me, it almost destroyed me. It almost destroyed my family. And when I found out that I didn't have to lose my home in the first place because I was under the federal poverty level, I was eligible for the poverty tax exemption, which would have seen me having no taxes to pay. I wasn't working. My husband wasn't working. We were receiving state aid, food stamps, and Medicaid, which made us eligible for the poverty tax exemption, and we wouldn't have lost our home. But nobody told me about that program. And even while I was going through foreclosure and went to the city buildings and other community resources, nobody told me about it. And by that time, nobody could help me. Today's forum is to prevent this from happening to you. As soon as I found out about the data and how this was happening to an 85% Black city, it lit a fire in me to start fighting. And I'm hoping today's forum lights a fire in you to start fighting as well. Today can be your jump off point to get in this fight and to tell the city that they cannot take over $600 million from its lowest income residents and not give us anything. While we may not be able to get that money right back in hand, there are things that they can do for us. There are many things that they can do for us. And I'm here today to show you that a simple community member who lost their home, because when Professor Atuahene met me, that's all I was, can get in this fight and receive some restitution. I was director of the Dignity Restitution housing program, where we crowdfunded and was able to give away homes scot-free to people who had lost their homes. I was actually the first recipient of one. We did this as a blueprint to the city to say, hey, it's possible to give restitution to your residents for what you've done. We were able to successfully give away 3 homes. So being in that we were able to do that, we know that the city can put something together and give us back what they took from us. But we can't do that without the community's help. We can't do that without you at the table saying, hey, this is how I want to be righted. This is how you can make me whole. So today, as we move through the program, when we get into our breakout rooms, we want to hear your voices. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear how you want to be made whole. And we're going to take that, and with the help of President Sheffield and Representative Talib, the coalition of all these wonderful organizations, we're going to push to make that happen. We're not here today just to talk. We are here to move. We're here to make these actions a law. We're here to make sure that the city makes it right. So I just wanted to speak to the community and let you know I'm one of you. This happened to me. I lost my home. And that if you're with us today and you stay with us, we will make the city make this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Snaps up, everyone. Snaps up for Sonia. What a compelling testimony. Thank you for those words. And I can tell by the chat, so many folks echo your sentiments, your feelings about the loss. And so that's really what this is about today, is talking about that loss and talking about how do we restore dignity for people that have lost their homes. Absolutely. So at this time, again, it's time for another action. We want to keep you guys engaged through this process. The coalition is not just talk, we are about action. So at this time, I'm going to have you guys email. We are now going to send an email out to Mayor Duggan. If you look in the chat, you'll see the email. It says the email to the mayor. There's a link there. And you're just going to click that link, and it's going to direct you to a pre-written email that you can send with just one click, or you can edit it if you want to add your own flavor to it, and send that off to Mayor Duggan. Okay, so we're going to give you a little bit of time to do that. And thank you in advance for your participation. This is so important. The work that the coalition is doing cannot be done without the people of Detroit. It is your strength that helps them to keep going. And I want to thank the coalition and its member partners for their support through this event. It could not be done without you. We're going to give you a little bit of time. Please click that link. We're going to send that email out to Mayor Duggan right now. We'll give you about 60 more seconds to do that. And I will reiterate, we are just at about 700 folks in this event. Very exciting, momentous event. And we are also streaming around the nation on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Just about 30 more seconds. Get your email off to the mayor, and then we will move on with the program. Such a powerful day, such a powerful day. Thank you. All righty. We are going to move on now at this time. All right, so it is my pleasure to now introduce to you Professor Bernadette Atuahene. Bernadette Atuahene is a property law scholar focusing on land stolen from people in the African diaspora. She's the daughter of Ghanaian immigrants who grew up in Los Angeles and attended UCLA for college. She then earned her JD from Yale and her MPA from Harvard. After completing her graduate studies, she served as a judicial clerk at the Constitutional Court of South Africa, and then practiced as an associate at a New York law firm called Cleary, Gottlieb, Steen, and Hamilton. She's now a law professor at IIT Chicago Kent College of Law and a research professor at the American Bar Foundation. Her first book, We Want What's Ours, Learning from South Africa's Land Restitution Program, is based on 150 interviews she conducted with South Africans dispossessed of their land by the colonial and apartheid governments and who received some form of compensation post-apartheid. Little did she know that while she was studying stolen land in South Africa, the local government was stealing land from Black people in her own Midwest backyard. So she came to Detroit and won a National Science Foundation Award to fund her current project about racialized property tax administration in Detroit, which has received several accolades, including the Law and Society Association's John Hope Franklin Award for Best Paper on Race in 2020. Today, she's going to share some data on the property tax foreclosure crisis in Detroit and explain what Detroit can learn from South Africa's compensation program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to bring forth Professor Bernadette Atuahene.
Good morning, Detroit. My name is Professor Bernadette Atuahene, and I am so excited to be with you today at this People's Forum hosted by the Coalition for Property Tax Justice and Council President Mary Sheffield. So again, I'm a law professor who specializes in land stolen from Black people throughout the African diaspora. My latest project has been about the theft occurring in Detroit, this majority Black city, through overtaxation and foreclosures. And I am excited to share with you my research. All right, let me get the slide going. Now, many of you know that since 2009, 1 in 3 homes has been taken through property tax foreclosure. 1 in 3. We haven't seen this number of property tax foreclosures in American history since the Great Depression. And activists on the ground are calling this a hurricane without water, because just like Hurricane Katrina, the property tax foreclosure crisis has decimated entire communities. And this is a visual of the foreclosures between 2002 and 2017 given to us by Loveland Technologies. Every dot you see here is a home that has gone through the tax foreclosure crisis. And this is what it looks like at the neighborhood level. And this is what it looks like at the city level. There is no neighborhood that has been untouched by the property tax foreclosure crisis. So the question is, what in the world is going on in Detroit? Well, part of the answer to that question has to do with the misbehaving banks. Because after the Great Recession, we know that property prices plummeted nationally. But in Black and brown communities where the predatory lending was especially bad, property prices really plummeted, as you can see here, as they did in Detroit, and they never recovered. And this is the very same time that Detroit is going through the largest municipal bankruptcy in US history. And so they just don't have the personnel, the money to really adjust property values to reflect these newly decreased property values. So that's part of the story. But in order for you to understand the whole story, I want to make sure you understand how the property tax bill is calculated in Michigan. So it's your taxable value minus qualifying exemptions, which are for poverty, seniors, and veterans, times the property tax rate. Now, before I started my work, there was a substantial amount of work done about the property tax rate in Michigan, in Detroit, which is one of the highest in the state of Michigan and actually one of the highest in the United States. There was also quite a bit of work done on the taxable value and the assessed value, showing inequity. But no, before I started, everyone was talking about property tax assessment and equity, and no one was really talking about the illegality. And I'm a law professor, so that's what I'm concerned with. Because the Michigan State Constitution is quite clear. No property can be assessed at more than 50% of its market value. Other state constitutions and legislation, to the extent they mention property tax assessments at all, say things like they must be uniform, fair, equal, which are all nebulous standards, up to a court to determine legality. Michigan and a few other places have a ratio. And so people like me can come in and run the numbers to determine legality. And that's precisely what we did. We conducted something called an assessment ratio study. And this is the main tool used by assessors, appeal boards, and citizens to determine assessment and equity. And our findings were shocking. We found that between 2009 and 2015, in each of these 7 years, anywhere between 55 and 85% of properties were assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. Let me just pause and let that sink in. Up to 85% of properties were being assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. And when we broke this data up into what we call 5 quintiles, so quintile 1 being the lowest valued homes and quintile 5 being the highest valued homes, what we found is in quintile 1 and 2, meaning the lowest valued homes, 95% or more of homes were being assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. But when you got to quintile 5, it was less than 20%. And so this is what we call, in my world, the term we use for this is regressive. That just means that the lower valued homes are taxed at a higher rate than the higher valued homes. And so in Detroit, property tax assessments are highly regressive. So what everybody knows is that, during Detroit's bankruptcy, Detroit gets taken over by an emergency manager. But what people don't know is because of this rampant illegality, Detroit's assessment division gets taken over by the state, and they only get back control in 2017 because at the top of 17, they finally finished a parcel by parcel reassessment of every single property in the city. So then my colleague Christopher Berry at the University of Chicago, he did another assessment ratio study to figure out if things actually got better. And as you can see, the good news is, on average, things actually did get better. So that's the good news. The bad news is, for the lowest valued homes, they are still to this day being assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution, systematically assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. Look at those red lines. Before and after 2017, we don't see much difference for the lowest valued homes. All right. So when I say that property taxes in Detroit are regressive, you can see here, again, on the left, the higher valued homes are taxed at below the constitutional limit, and the lower valued homes are taxed in excess of the constitutional limit. All right, I've talked a lot about assessments, and I want to really now move to foreclosures, because we know there's lots and lots of things that cause foreclosures, right? Someone could be in poverty, someone could have died, death, divorce. I can go on and on. So the real challenge in our next study, which I co-authored with Chris Berry, was to really control for all those other factors that can cause you to go into foreclosure, so we could measure the one variable of interest, which is these illegally inflated property tax assessments. We wanted to know what the impact of these illegally inflated property tax assessments were on tax foreclosure rates, holding all of these other variables constant. And we're able to say that 10% of all tax foreclosures would not have happened but for these illegally inflated property tax assessments. That's all tax foreclosures. But if you look at just the bottom quintile, the lowest valued homes, where I told you that 95% or more were being assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution, we're able to say 1 in 4, or 25% of those homes, would not have gone into tax foreclosure but for these illegally inflated tax assessments. So let me just sum this up. What do we have here in Detroit? We have a situation where the assessment division is there's a proliferation of these unconstitutional property tax assessments, right? And which leads to illegally inflated property taxes. And when citizens cannot afford to pay these illegally inflated property taxes, we have seen, again, since 2009, 1 in 3 homes subjected to property tax foreclosure. The last time we've seen this level of tax foreclosures in American history, again, was since the Great Depression. But get this, all for step forward, don't forget about all for property taxes that many of these Detroit homeowners should not have been paying in the first place, because if you live under the federal poverty line, you should not be paying property taxes, okay? But it was because the city of Detroit made this property tax exemption so difficult to access that many people went to foreclosure for property taxes they weren't supposed to be paying in the first place. It wasn't until the ACLU of Michigan, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and the law firm of Covington and Burling sued the city that it finally got its act together, and now the property tax exemption is accessible. And that's one of the wins of not only the Coalition for Property Tax Justice, but every single Detroiter who has been working to make this right. That is one of the bright spots in this, is that has now come right. But I need you to know that this is not just a Detroit problem. It's actually not just a Michigan problem. This problem of regressivity, where the lower valued homes are taxed at a higher rate than higher valued homes, is a national problem. And again, the Center for Municipal Finance at the University of Chicago did a national study. And as you can see here, Michigan is the second worst in the nation, right behind Alabama and before Mississippi. And I need you to know that this is not just a national problem, this is a national racial justice issue. Carlos Avendaño Leon and Troop Howard got their hands on some amazing data. And they're able to tell us that nationally, Black and Hispanic homeowners pay on average 10 to 13% more in property taxes for the same bundle of goods as whites. This equals, again, an extra $300 to $400 per year. So again, this is not just a Detroit issue. This is not just a Michigan issue. This is a national racial justice issue. And so we have formed the Coalition for Property Tax Justice, which is a coalition of about a dozen grassroots Detroit organizations, alongside of researchers like myself, lawyers, students. We have come together to do something about this and slay this dragon called the property tax foreclosure crisis in Detroit. And we have certain demands. We are calling number one on Mayor Duggan. We need compensation, okay? Because you can't just have this empirically proven, illegally inflated property tax assessment talking about some oops, I'm sorry. Oh no, baby, it's not no oops, I'm sorry. We need compensation, okay? And that has to, because it has to do with the budget, that has to come from the mayor. And there are two principles upon which we are basing the compensation. And it's dignity takings and dignity restoration. What's this about? So dignity takings is this idea that in certain instances, if I take something from you, the point is at the moment of compensation, I have to give you that thing back or something that's equivalent to that thing. But there are other instances where I take something from you as part of a larger strategy of dehumanization or infantilization or a larger process of structural racism, a racist theft, right? In those instances, I've taken more than just your property. I've also taken your dignity, and that's called the dignity takings. And the idea is to say when this larger harm called the dignity takings has occurred, mere reparations are not enough. Just giving you compensation for the thing taken is not enough. What's required is a more robust remedy that I call dignity restoration. And that's the process of giving you compensation for things taken, but through a process that affirms your humanity and restores your agency, right? So how does this look like in Detroit? Well, the overtaxation and the stealing of wealth and houses through tax foreclosure is an undeniable dignity takings. And what I need you to know is it's part of a larger historical pattern of racial dispossession, of stealing Black people's land in Detroit. It starts with slavery, but let's come to racially restrictive covenants, redlining, urban renewal, block busting, predatory mortgage lending. And these illegally inflated property taxes, again, are just the latest chapter in a longer history of dignity takings in Detroit. So what does dignity restoration look like? What does it look like to put dispossessed individuals and communities in the driver's seat and allowing them to determine how it is they're made whole? Well, it's about creating a menu of options. And this is what we're about to discuss in the breakout groups. I, Professor Bernadette Atuahene, have no business telling anybody who was overtaxed or who was dispossessed what they should get. They need to exercise their agency and tell us what they want. And that's the core principle of dignity restoration, is providing a menu and allowing people to exercise their agency and choose how it is that they're made whole. So in the breakout sessions, we're going to say, look, this is what we put together based on the mayor's last year, what he put forward in November. Did we get this right? That's what we want to talk about in the small groups. We want to hear from you. What did we miss? What doesn't work, right? And so this is what we want to hear from you. But I have to mention one thing. We all know about the Detroit News expose, all right? They just did such a wonderful job. And we know that between the most conservative estimates possible tell us that between 2010 and 2016, the city of Detroit stole $600 million. Anybody with a drop of sense knows that if you stole something, well, the point of compensation, give me my money back. Right? I mean, that's just basic common sense. But the point is that what we're dealing with in this instance is a legal opinion from Corporation Counsel Lawrence Garcia. And that legal opinion basically says that giving cash payments is illegal. Now, as a law professor and a lawyer, the legal logic in this opinion is so deeply flawed. But the point is, it's going to take us time to fight this. And the scribes will put in the city council lifted privilege on this legal opinion. So we have a link to it so you can read this opinion for yourself. So what we're saying is, yes, we believe one of the options should be a cash payout. But for now, it's not in the menu of options that you will be reviewing in the breakout groups because of this legal opinion, right? We don't want to hold everything up and try and fight the legal. We want to get going with what we can get going with now. And then while we're simultaneously fighting this legal opinion. All right, but this compensation ordinance is something that the mayor has to do. But there's also something that city council can do. We don't have to wait on the mayor for everything, right? So city council is in charge of legislation. And we do need legislation to suture the wound, right? Because I just told you the city is still illegally inflating property taxes. They're still overtaxing the lowest valued homes, and we need to suture that wound. And that is something city council has the power to do now. And we have a three-pronged proposal at the coalition for doing that. After significant research, we believe the first step to suture the wound is to create an independent review board, because a lot of what's going on is a lot of empirical foolishness, right? It's because city council doesn't have the skill set to understand the quantitative work that goes into assessments, and nor should they. And so what we're proposing is they get a independent review board of experts, people who know how to crunch the numbers, so that they can crunch the numbers and give city council an independent assessment. Did the assessment division get it right? Year by year, this group of independent experts will be able to provide city council with an opinion as to whether these assessments were done properly or not. So that's the first step. Create this independent review board to bypass these what I call empirical shenanigans. All right. Second step is to require both the assessment division and this independent review board to do an assessment ratio study. That's the study that I did, that I showed you the results from. That's the way we figure out whether assessments are equitable or not. All right. And so we would have both, again, this review board and the assessment division do their studies and present both to city council. So city council can determine whether or not they have the tools they need to determine whether or not these assessments were equitable. And the last step is, if in fact city council determines that the assessor was illegally inflating property tax assessments, then the city that year has no business forwarding those homes to the county for foreclosure. Because the only way you need to be foreclosed upon is if you didn't pay your taxes. Foreclosure is an act of extreme legal violence, only to be exercised with extreme caution. And what we've seen in the city of Detroit is, in place of extreme caution, we've had extreme recklessness. And homes have been systematically overassessed and then foreclosed upon. That has to stop. And so the point is, if we find at the front end homes are illegally inflated, their assessments, then they should not be sent to the county. That's a three-pronged solution that city council can do right now to, again, suture the wound. Now we want to hear from you. That's the proposal on the table. City Council President Mary Sheffield has put these proposals on the table, and we're about to now go into the breakout groups, and we want to know your opinion. Is this menu of options, did we get that right? Given the legal opinion that we can't put cash, but did we get that right otherwise, right? And this proposal to suture the room, did we get that right? The reason why we're breaking out into small breakout groups is we want to hear your voices. We have trained facilitators and trained scribes in each of the breakout groups who will collect your ideas, who will collect your feedback, and we'll write a report. And everybody who registered for this event will send them the report. And please know that the report will not only include people who spoke, but you can speak through the chat, and that will be included in the report. And we also have a link, and one of the scribes, please put the link in the chat. Some people are timid, they don't like to speak in big groups. We have a link where you can tell your story later, tomorrow, later today, and it will be included in the data that we're using to write the report. So you have many ways to have your voice heard. You can either unmute yourself in the small group, you can be in the chat right here in the main room or in the small group, or you can also use the link that they've just put in the chat to tell your story at a later time. But the point is, we want to hear from you. All right. Again, this is an exciting time. This is an exciting event, and I'm so glad that I can be part of this. I'm gonna send it back to you, MJ. Thank you so much, everybody. Good to see you.
Wow. Snaps up, everybody. Please give Professor Atuahene a round of applause. Thank you for the passion. Thank you for this critically significant work that you're doing. There's so much that needs to be done for the people of Detroit. You've made it crystal clear, and we want all of you, residents, elected officials, everyone that is a member and a partner, we have got to take up this mantle, and we've got to make the changes in order to get dignity restoration for the people of Detroit, as Professor Atuahene has said. At this time, we are going to pivot into our breakout sessions. Focus in right now, because I'm going to give you some very important instructions as we move, and we want everyone to have a good experience as you move into the breakout spaces, okay? So first off, they've been putting the link in the chat on how you can find your district. We're going to show a quick video that shows you, in case you're not certain when you go to that site, what you're looking at. And so please watch this video. So using the link provided in the chat, it's going to take you to detroitmi.gov, detroitmi.gov. And when you go to that page, you're going to scroll down about midways to the section that says Get Info on your home and neighborhood. At this point, you're going to enter your address. We're just entering in a dummy address here. So you enter your street address, your city, state, and your zip code into the location finder. And once you've done that, you're going to hit enter. And it will then pull up all your applicable information for your address. So you'll see your district in the first section there and your council member. Alrighty, and that's it. Okay, so that is the instructions. Hopefully you are finding your way to your district, or you know what your district is. All right, so let's get to the breakouts and how to access them. I'll start off by saying, anyone that's here on a phone, you are going to stay in this room. This room, the main room, is going to be District 5, okay? So District 5 will stay here, and anyone who's on a phone will stay in this room, because you don't have the flexibility, and by on a phone, I mean you've dialed in. Let me make that correction. If you've dialed in, you need to stay in this room, okay? So for desktop users and laptop users, at the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to open up the room so that you can see them. Everyone hold on, don't go anywhere. So you should see an icon at the bottom of the screen that says breakout rooms. What you're going to do is click that, and then it will pull up a list of the possible breakout rooms for you to go to. Okay, I'm going to read off those breakout rooms once I get through all the instructions, but you should see that icon, and that's how you're going to move to your room. Okay. The other option is for those of you that are on mobile devices or iPads. In most cases, you are going to need to tap your screen in order to see the breakout icon come up. Okay, if you tap your screen, it'll come up for about 5 seconds and then disappear again. So you're tapping your screen, looking for the breakout icon, and then clicking that, and it will pull up the list of choices of the rooms that you can go to. For those people that are on a mobile device, you're just going to choose the room. It will put a check mark, and then you join that room. For those of you that are on desktops and laptops, when you see that list come up, you look over to the right, and there should be blue buttons for you to join, and you join your room. I will say this, and I'm glad folks are getting to the spaces. Please mute yourself as you are entering those rooms, and follow the facilitator and the scribe's instructions as you do enter. We're going to be in these breakouts for just about an hour time. Again, the folks that have dialed in need to stay here in this room, and I will now turn over this space to the District 5 facilitator and scribe. And I will say for the rooms, I'll just read them off for you now. So in room 1 is going to be District 1 and District 3. So those two districts will be in the same room together. District 2 is with Councilmember Whitfield Calloway. District 4 is Councilmember Johnson. District 5, again, is here. District 6 is Councilmember Santiago Romero. And District 7 is Councilmember Durhal. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. So please go to the room that aligns with your district, and please engage. This is your time to let your voices be heard. And again, I'll turn it over to the facilitators for this room.
Great, thank you so much, MJ. Hey everyone, how you doing today? My name is Mark Crane. I am going to be your facilitator for our District 5 breakout. And we are just going to spend a few minutes giving folks a chance to get into the room, into their various breakouts before we get started. In the meantime, I want to ask everyone to please fill out the survey that you see being dropped in the chat box. It's been dropped periodically throughout the presentation. We'll get it in there again now. Please use this time as folks filter in their breakout rooms to fill out that survey.
Just so everybody knows, there's a mistake. When it says District 1 and 2, it's District 1 and 3 are together, not District 1 and 2. There is a mistake.
Thank you, Bernadette. And just as a reminder, everyone in this space should be for District 5, or if you're on your phone, you'll join us in this space. And again, we're just taking a little bit of time to let folks filter in and get to the right place. And we ask that you use this time to fill out the survey in the chat box. Okay, everyone, we're going to give this about just one more minute to let folks filter into the right breakout rooms. I see the participant list is still changing around a bit. So if you're in District 5 or you're joining from your phone, or if you're from outside the city and you want a session to sit in on, you're welcome to sit in this session, but this is for District 5 residents to hear back from. I see a question, where does District 4 go? You do have a breakout room for District 4. You may need to look at the options at the bottom of your screen to see your breakout room. If you're on a tablet, you may need to tap to see the options to join a breakout room. There is no District 8. You're welcome to stay in this room. If you're looking for your district, that you can go to detroitmi.gov, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there is a lookup tool to find your district. Wonderful. So we're going to go ahead and get started, everyone. We want to thank you again for taking the time to join us this afternoon. Very excited to hear from all of our residents in District 5 about this issue. So if I can, I'd like to just go ahead and get into some ground rules. So first, let me start with just some really brief introductions. My name is Mark Crane. I represent an organization called Dream of Detroit. We're a community development organization based here in District 5, over near Davison and Woodrow Wilson. And we've been a member of the Coalition for Property Tax Justice since 2017. Doing a lot around outreach to other faith communities, also doing a lot around trying to stop owner-occupied homes from entering the property tax auction. So definitely grateful to speak with you all today. I want to invite our scribe, Sonia Bonnet. You heard her voice earlier today, but she'll be in this group with us. And I just want to invite Sonia to introduce herself as well.
Hello, it's me again. Sonia Bonnet, founding member of the Coalition for Property Tax Justice, and also a community legal advocate at the Detroit Justice Center.
Thank you, Sonia. So just a few ground rules for everyone as we get into our discussion here. Number one, we're really grateful to have the presence of so many city council members today. And of course, we have a real champion on this issue who represents District 5, Council President Mary Sheffield. Council President Sheffield is in the group today. She is listening to what we're sharing. And she's here mainly to listen because we want to hear from the folks in District 5 today in this conversation. At the end of our presentation, Council President Sheffield, may decide to offer a few words as well. But of course, we're grateful for the context that she offered earlier in the presentation. So we also want to ask that everyone is on camera if you can, if you're joining us by video, and especially if you're planning to offer feedback, we definitely ask that you have your camera on if at all possible. Some basics, we ask that folks treat each other and our experiences with respect. We're all here to working toward a common cause. Please mute when you're not talking. This is a recorded meeting. I want to note that for everyone, this is a recorded meeting and the chat is being saved as well. We're asking folks that you take 1 to 2 minutes of talking time as we get into our feedback round. There's a lot of us here. And we just want to let folks know that we do want to make sure that this is a productive space, and we'll have to ask folks to leave if they're continuing to break these ground rules. So again, the chat room is open. Please use the chat actively. Please share with us in the chat. Our scribe, Sonia, is going to be monitoring the chat, sharing out some of the things that you post there. And we'll also be asking you to use the reactions throughout this session that we have right now. So we'll be asking you to raise your hand at different times. So please be prepared to do that. So we want to start, and we're going to rush to get to hearing everybody's voices, but we really want to just start by reiterating something that Professor Atuahene said in the presentation, which is, today's presentation is to discuss a range of options that we can push for right now. We all agree that cash compensation should be one of the options on the table for people who were affected by this property tax foreclosure crisis. But as Professor Atuahene shared, the city's legal department has put forth an opinion that it would not be lawful for the city to create such a fund. And so at this moment, it is not an option. The coalition is fighting to make it an option. Everyone here is welcome to join our coalition's work. We have a working group that is focused on a compensation fund for affected Detroiters. We actually have a potential path forward on that fund and a lot of partners at the table. And if that's something that you're particularly interested in, you're welcome to join the Compensation Fund Working Group. And if you pay attention to the chat, we'll get a link to that working group and where you can join in the chat. And of course, you can learn more about the work in general at illegalforeclosures.org. But if you want to help us fight to get past this legal opinion, please do join that working group. Okay? So again, defeating that flawed logic is going to take some time, and we want to focus today on what we can change now. So what we can accomplish, and again, I'm echoing some of what Professor Atuahene shared with you already, is we can build on the compensation resolution that was put forth in November 2021, because the administration has already opined that it's legal. And so that's why that's what this ordinance that we're working with Council President Sheffield on is meant to do, is to build on what they've already said is legal. So let me stop there. Let's take a quick break, or not a break, but let me ask everyone in our room, and there's about 330 of us here right now. Do you believe that dignity takings and dignity restorations should be the two main principles guiding the compensation? So if you do, I'm going to ask that you put your hand up. Going to ask that if you agree that dignity takings and dignity restoration should be the two main principles, that you raise your hand. And it looks like a lot of people agree with that. Can we hear all the questions first? Yes, well, we're going to get into the very specific questions about the compensation package, but we just wanted to start with this question. Professor Atuahene explained what we mean by dignity takings and dignity restoration, and we just want to, affirm with folks in the room that people should be able to choose their compensation after what happened. So that's where we want to start. So let's dig into the actual compensation option. So as you all know, there's 4 categories of homeowners, as was shared. And today we're going to talk about the options that are available to each of these categories. So first, again, as was explained, there's the poverty tax exemption. It's now called HOPE. And there are thousands of people who should have never had to pay these property taxes in the first place, let alone the fact that they were overassessed. So this chart is just to give you an idea of the income levels for folks to be eligible for those exemptions. So 2 categories here: affected homeowners. These are folks who were overtaxed but not foreclosed. And again, the data said, between 2009 and 2015, between 55 and 85% of Detroiters in any given year were being overtaxed. So affected and exempt, people who were overtaxed, homeowners that the county did not foreclose on, but these people were actually eligible for an exemption. And then, of course, we have people who may not have been eligible for the exemption, but again, they were overtaxed. And in this case, they were affected but not foreclosed on. So then we have 2 categories of people who were foreclosed on, who did lose their properties through the Wayne County foreclosure process and property tax foreclosure process. This includes people who were exempt, overtaxed homeowners that the county foreclosed on despite their eligibility for the exemption, and then people who foreclosed but were not exempt, people who were foreclosed on, they were overtaxed, they were homeowners, the county did foreclose on their property, but these people were not eligible for exemption. Again, still overtaxed and foreclosed on. So these are the 4 categories. And again, today what we're trying to do is get feedback from everyone on the options for compensation that people in these categories should be offered. So you have here in front of you a grid with some sort of starting options. We want your feedback on these options, and we're going to go one by one through these categories. We want your feedback on these options, and then we'd also like to hear your original ideas, what you think should be offered that's outside of what you see here. So that's what we're going to get into now. We're going to start to open up the floor because we really want folks' input here. So I want to note that we see some folks in the chat who are having trouble getting into the various breakout rooms. We will try to address that in the chat. I also see some questions around hand raising or commenting. We will be taking comments from the chat box throughout this. Our scribe is taking note of those. Sonia, she'll bring some of those to the floor. And we are also going to be asking folks to raise their hand if they'd like to make a comment as we go forward. Okay, and I'll call on you, and our friend MJ will unmute you. So I'm going to ask that if you are not if you're not asking a question, that you lower your hand now. Maybe you had it raised from earlier from the first question. If you're not, if you can lower your hand, because we're going to get into a moment in a second. We're going to ask people to raise their hands for comments. Okay, again, we're just about to get into our feedback here. I see a few folks who have their hands raised already, so I'm hoping that it's because you want to give feedback on this category. Again, we're going to ask that folks lower your hands if you are not ready to offer feedback. And again, this is for District 5. Everyone is welcome to listen in. I know that we have folks on the phone who are not necessarily in District 5. You couldn't join a breakout group, but we're going to ask that in terms of giving feedback here, that you defer to District 5 residents. We really want to hear from the folks in this district. And if you're in a different district, we ask that you try to join the breakout room for that district. So let's start here with folks who are foreclosed but exempt. And so this again, overtaxed homeowners that the county foreclosed on despite their eligibility for property tax exemption. What do you think folks should be offered in this category? We're focused on, again, non-cash compensation here. What do you think folks should be offered? You've got in front of you the things that are being put forth to start our conversation. I'm going to ask that we take Jacqueline, a comment from Jacqueline.
Is Jacqueline have a last name, or is it just Jacqueline?
Just Jacqueline, Jacqueline.
Absolutely. Please unmute yourself. Jacqueline, please unmute yourself.
Hello?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to understand. You said that, what was the question?
So right now we're asking for feedback on the options that people should receive if they were foreclosed on, they lost their home to foreclosure, and they were actually exempt. They shouldn't have had to pay taxes in the first place. So we want feedback from the group on what compensation options people should be able to choose from if they are in this category.
Okay, I think they should refund their home, get their homes back, or give them the money for their home, and the fact that they was exempt in the beginning because of the low income.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, and
can we ask?
Yeah, just like they're paying the people to move back to Detroit, they should be paying us to stay. The people that lost their homes are, overtaxing and stuff, and especially the elderly, the senior citizens. Like I'm a senior citizen and a widow, and I'm being overtaxed. I'm in the process of losing my home right now. I think something should be done for those people in that area. And like the lady said, the population in Detroit is 80% low income, and I don't understand why they're taking our homes away from us.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you. So we heard some feedback from Jacqueline. Can we ask for Wanda Riley next? Wanda, could you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I have a couple of comments. First of all, I have multiple properties. I had been a a City of Detroit employee for over 20 years when I was laid off in December 2016. And I have been struggling to pay my property taxes. Now, from 2012 up until current, it takes 3 years before you actually lose your properties. So the years that I was being overtaxed, each time that I would pay on my property taxes so I wouldn't lose the home, interest and all of that steadily occur. Now, I still own all the houses, but I'm struggling to keep them. And part of the problem was I was being overtaxed years ago. So the monies that I am paying now and still trying to keep the homes, I may end up losing them at this point, but part of the problem was when I was being overtaxed years ago.
Mhm.
Also, I would think because there are so many investors, real estate agents, always constantly sending me email, text messages, postcards, asking, do you want to sell your home? They sit around and look for homes that are in foreclosure, like sharks, just waiting, to jump on them. Are you interested in selling your home? Well, you asking me that because you noticed that it's in the foreclosure stage and it's time for the auction or, for properties to be foreclosed on. So you want first dibs on it. If I sell you my home, where am I going to live? Okay, and then on top of that, I don't feel like any Detroit homeowners until this property assessment is straightened out should be foreclosed on, period, for at least the next 3 years. There should be no foreclosures on Detroit homeowners for property taxes for at least the next 3 years. That way all these predators will back off, and then we could come up with a solution as to how we can resolve, or like you said, some people already lost their homes. Some still have homes, but are still, in danger of losing them. I can't.
Right.
You can only get help through the HTPAT if that's your primary residence. But I put and invested a lot of money in the few houses that I do have to get them up to par. Now, for me to not have a job and I'm struggling to keep the insurance and taxes on them, if I fall, if I can't pay them, and then here comes an investor, or it goes into foreclosure and someone is able to purchase the homes that I've spent so much time and money into for some pennies, it's like a slap in the face. And I'm not, and I just started back working at Chrysler.
We understand. Thank you, Ms. Riley. I want to wrap you up there. I appreciate all that you had to share. This is, you're absolutely right. The system has been helping the predators, and we need to stop the predators. You're absolutely right by that. And we do need to have things in place to reward and keep the people here who've stayed in Detroit through these crises. So thank you for sharing that. And we pray that you're able to hold on to your properties, and that they're productive properties in the city. We want to keep going with feedback on this slide for a few more minutes. So we're looking for recommendations for compensation options that should be offered to people who lost their homes to foreclosure and were actually exempt or should have been exempt from paying property taxes. Can we go to the Virginia Park community? Can you unmute yourself, Virginia Park community?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hi. Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
So in regard to compensation options for those who were foreclosed upon, and this actually could be for those who have not been foreclosed upon, but looking at options to recoup the wealth that was lost. So a lot of times we talk about compensation in the form of the exact amounts that were lost, but also the decision-making process that had to go through for a lot of people, because a lot of people had to make choices, tough choices. And what was lost over time is that interest, the growth that we've seen in the city thus far, they lost out on their portion of that growth. So I think an option that is viable looking at is property that's specifically in areas that we see growth happening. So not giving someone a property that is obviously going to take so much time to matriculate, but putting them in a position for growth, basically letting them start where they left off. So if you had a property, hypothetically speaking, that's in the Boston, Edison, Virginia Park area, that property would have valuated itself at this time 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times full. Like we've seen that continual growth. So looking at reinstituting properties that would literally start them off where they left off. So not having people start from the bottom. Most of these people had bought these homes. They were in different stages of their life. So most of them had been working, saving, consistently paying on property taxes. They would have seen some wealth. They would have been able to refinance those homes, take some of the value out, use some of that value to support businesses, ideas. So it's not just so much supporting those who had been prey for the predator, but also putting them in a position so they are no longer prey going forward.
Never scared. Don't say
Absolutely.
God damn.
So really insulating our communities with people who are strong enough to withstand, because it's not like it wasn't like a one-off situation, right? This was a plague upon a people. A continual pressing down upon, and it touched every household. You know, everyone knows somebody who lost a house. Every kid who's born like 93 to 96 had a parent who lost the house. So it was like a descending plague. So you have to put people back where they were if they're to survive what is to come, because we see the next wave already happening with everyone. Detroit's on everybody's list. Everyone wants to invest in Detroit now. But we were the ones who saw the potential and sustained the community throughout, even when at times, you know, it was breaking people's pockets to pay those taxes. They had to make choices between food and paying those taxes. So it's not just enough to be like, hey, we'll give you the value. No, baby, I need, I hate to say it, not just restoration, but protection going forward. So thinking about what type of policies will you implement going forward for that? Like maybe a situation where, hey, if you get behind on the property taxes, the house cannot be foreclosed upon until it passes to the next generation. You know, it like really just insulating ourselves.
Yes. Thank you, Virginia Park. We appreciate that. We appreciate all your good ideas. I want to reiterate a few things for folks. If you have not yet, please fill out the survey so that we can make sure we're capturing ideas from everyone, even people who don't get to speak. Number 2, if you want to speak, please make sure that your full name is in Zoom so that we know who we're asking to speak and bring it to the floor. And again, thank you for those comments about recouping wealth, acknowledging that people have lost interest over time, that valuations have increased, and that we don't want people to just get, you know, the worst homes in the land bank inventory right now when they you know, lost a family heirloom. So thank you. Let's continue with Alexandra Nichols. Could you unmute yourself?
Oh, how are you?
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Well, how are you?
Doing good. I couldn't agree more with Miss Virginia Park. Let me just state that right off the top. It's wonderful to hear her share that, because all of my thoughts led there, but just hadn't been able to get there for future generations. Okay, but more in addition to that, I had an exemption. The home was passed down because my mom passed in 2006. I was in graduate school in California and I was paying the taxes before my mom passed, and I absolutely had to do it after because I was on the deed. And I had an exemption because a lady in the Detroit tax office said, I told her, I am a graduate student. I'm on workers' comp because I got injured working at Macy's in California. And I've been paying my taxes with my income tax refund every year and getting on the payment plans. She said, ma'am, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but there's an exemption you could probably get. I said, not supposed to tell me. It was like she get in trouble for telling me about this exemption. I'm like, I have hurried up, gave her my school ID, this and that. My dad worked for the city and the sanitation department for years upon years to buy this house for 10 kids and got us through college. The dignity is tarnished. The city of Detroit, this is not us. Where's the love, Detroit? This is not Detroit. My dad, he went through the alleys and got that garbage. He worked overtime and got that sought out on the winter days. I'm his last child and saw me through college. This is not how it's supposed to go. This is not. So I had an account and contract with the UCHC, United House, whatever.
United Community Housing Coalition. Go ahead. Yeah.
Ted Phillips, those folks went with me to my house and they locked me out. They saw that I was locked out of my own house. They put my house in blight. My pipes bust in 2008. I had the roll-off teams come and clean it out. I had $5,000 invested in cleaning out my home at 4031 West. I want community members on the UCHC. I spoke with Eric Sabri. He told me, well, if you got the money now, I'll let you have it back. Well, okay, let me go home. I need $400 more. Let me get it together. Janet Taylor couldn't get it. Been talking to her for years. Knew I was living in California. Came back, I'm working in the school district, EAA, DPSCD, giving back, giving kids my master's degree. Fortified, I'm from Detroit, went to Central. We need community members on the UCHC, the Treasury, Wayne County Treasury Board, the Land Bank. We need representatives from every district on those decisions. Like the lady said before, no exemptions for 3 years or more. Get these community members on those committees. So we have empathy for what someone's going through. And thank you so much for hearing my voice today. And I thank the professor and all that have been involved since I felt alone. I said this before, they knew I felt alone coming from California. I thought this was only happening to me. Until I met up with the professor and some others in the group, and they guided me to a place where I felt I didn't have any dignity. I was low to the ground. My siblings looked at me like I was a failure, even though I've been paying taxes. I have been paying the taxes, but I felt like a failure. And the dignity was lost for me until I realized there was a group going through this as well. So dignity is most important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, we appreciate you sharing that story, and I'm sorry for everything that you went through. And like you said, you know, you felt alone like a lot of people did, like Sonia shared. You felt in isolation, and we're sorry. And now we're trying to do this work to bring as many of us together to make this right. So thank you for sharing. I want to move to our next slide, everyone. If you got your hand up, you're welcome to keep it up if you want to share your opinion about our next slide. But I just want to make sure we cover all 4 of our categories and then have time at the end for our council president to say a few words before we get back to our large group. So the next category is folks who were foreclosed and not exempt. You know, the starting options here are the same, but we want to talk about whether you all think there's any difference in the compensation options that should be given to people who were foreclosed, but who were actually not eligible for that tax exemption. Again, these people were also overtaxed. We want to be clear about that, but we want to open the floor and see if there's any question or any recommendations rather for compensation options for this group. And let me just know one more time that if you check the chat, you should see the survey link being posted. You should see deeper explanations being posted by our scribe, Sonia Bonnet, and you'll see some quotes. So thank you. Let me start with Ms. Denise Lyles. Ms. Lyles, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you for hosting this. First and foremost, whether you were exempt or not, you were overtaxed, you lost your property. So why should there be a difference? Compensation needs to go back to these people. I understand legally cash payments is not an option now. We have to keep fighting to get that as an option. And then the credits, but not just looking at what was lost there. Things that we need to find a way to put a monetary value on their dignity, on everything these people have gone through. And I couldn't agree with Virginia Park more. You know, we have to not only make them whole again, but give them some type of protection. When you have hurts and loss like this, that's something that does not go away. It's something that is not just on the surface. It's going to be there. So we are our brother's keepers, and we have to help each other. That's all I've got for now.
Thank you, Ms. Lyles. We appreciate that. We're going to continue down. We've got another community member from Virginia Park next. Virginia Park 1, we'll ask that you unmute.
Hi, thank you. Calling from the impacted area, not only from the city, but also from the HK Henry Kiefer project. What we're looking at in this community, you couldn't even replace the person's home that lost their home because either that home does not exist, or as soon as that house went into foreclosure, someone outside of the city purchased it. Either they were somewhere else in Michigan or outside of Michigan. So you couldn't even make them whole. What we have suggested numerous times and met with council president is that giving us not 3 years, but 50 years to 100 years exempt, property tax exempt. That's one way for the people that are still holding this community down and that's for the legacy homeowners, the people that purchased their home that is not does not qualify for the NEZ. And so what we're seeing is that we're still being overtaxed because we had our homes before the NEZ came into existence. So that's for 50 years to 100. We can sit down, negotiate, and look at the numbers. It is possible because you don't have a lot of the original owners here. What you can do, because they're looking at reconstruction in this area, is provide those people, not as some of the representatives from the mayor office suggest that they move over in the Brightmoor area where they're doing construction or in the other areas of the city. But if they want to stay in this community, in this district, this historical district area, that they provide some of the new homes that are being constructed here or revamped here, the opportunity to either purchase the homes that are still in existence and give them the $15,000 to $25,000 they're getting for new people, that incentive, or they come in and they do some repairs and allow those people back in. Because we have to understand, a lot of people, especially in this great America, work multiple jobs to purchase their home, to continue to pay when unjust mortgages and prices were put on their home when they were redlined, which they still try to bring that in. They didn't have the opportunity as other Americans. And so they put everything, blood, sweat, and tears in the purchase of that home just to lose it because of people making decisions that they couldn't interact or sit at the table. They became part of the menu. And so what we want to do is 50 to 100 years. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And we hear you when you say that people put everything they had into these homes. And like we said, this is a loss of generational wealth and more, not just properties. So we're going to continue with comments from the residents. I know that we have some at-large council members in our group as well. So at the end of our session, we will make space prior to council president if making remarks if she'd like to. But I just want to continue with the comments from our residents. So we're going to move on now to folks who were affected and who could have been exempt. So again, these are people who were overtaxed. They were in that 55 to 85% of us who were overtaxed every year during that period, but they did not get foreclosed on. So there is a really distinct difference here. And we do want to ask people, and I hear you, Ms. Lyles, what you said, that everybody was impacted by this. Maybe we shouldn't be drawing distinctions. So we're noting comments like that as well. But we want to hear from folks about compensation options you think should go to people who were affected and who were eligible for the HPTAP, the poverty tax exemption. So let's go ahead. I see a hand from Marcus Rosario. Marcus, can you unmute yourself?
How's it going, sir? I'm gonna turn my video on really quick. I can't say I'm directly affected by that 55% mark, however that is. I have a sibling who did lose a home during that crisis time. And I just kind of wanted to refer back to the sentiment that the law professor spoke on, and how emotional it is when you think about how many ways that we are still being affected by the same type of oppression and how blind we really are to it. I wanted to know if anybody who knows anything about the property tax exemption programs or any of the rehab programs that are available to residents, if they could share those links and the messages so that I can just forward them to some residents that I know who are suffering right now with the same kind of sentiment of the same thing with property taxes and things of that nature. And just want to add that sentiment. It's really unfortunate that that we're still going through all of the different types of angles of, these tactics that keeps us down and keeps us suffering the most in the worst areas, and we really aren't conscious of it. I'm a student, a student teacher as well, so it's my job to learn and educate. And I just wanted to tap in and see if anybody could share any of those resources so that I might be able to forward those resources to some people in the community.
Thank you, Marcus. We appreciate that. So we are dropping links in the chat box. We'll get links to resources, and that's for everybody, to take advantage of and to share. So I appreciate you asking that. And I also want to draw your attention to a link that Sonia just posted that says your stories are important. It's a link where you can actually tell us your story in a 2-minute video. And we'll be in touch with you before sharing that, but we want to hear from everybody. And, though Marcus said that he wasn't directly impacted, the truth is, if my sister lost her home, I was directly impacted. This is a family situation. Like, these things reverberate throughout the nuclear family, especially, if not further. So, we do want to hear stories. Let's keep going. We're going to spend 1 or 2 more comments on folks who were affected but exempt. We got about 17 minutes left in this session. And again, we're going to leave some time at the end to hear from our representatives. So, Byron Osborne, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Crane. Good morning, everybody. District 5 and abroad. I do fall into the category where I was overly assessed. However, I did not lose my property and I was not exempt from any type of abatements. But I had to help my mother out, had to help her get current on her property taxes. She was overassessed as well. So my point's real quick. The land bank has been a problem, seems like, since day one. So to try to make people whole, I think we need to split that whole organization up and start parting these houses out to people, giving those who are most gravely affected, giving them first crack at the houses. And they need to be fully rehabbed, brought up to code, brought up to energy efficiency codes for today's buildings. And I think with bringing them up to code, we need to put money towards small businesses, small Black businesses, Detroit-based, women-based businesses. These are small businesses within our community, so they need to get first crack at those contracts. Mostly community oversight, seeing who's getting those contracts, seeing the home before, during, and after. I mean, the land bank slam people when they get them, give them 30, 60, 90 days to get the house up to code, then snatch it right back if they forget to cross one I or dot one T or something. You know how people say that. So we need to really handle that. And our elders. I do block club meetings. I'm over here in Boston, Edison. And my elders, we are in the NEZ, thanks to Council President Sheffield for that. But my elders don't get a chance at that NEZ opportunity. They've been here for 50 to 80 years. And because they didn't move in or didn't buy a house before the 90s, whatever that, I think it's 96, they don't get a chance at the NEZ. So we need to put some money towards that. I understand I'm in the same boat. I want my money back. But if right now we waiting for a legal opinion, we need to look at those kind of things. So for the sake of time, make sure it's transparent and make sure that somebody from the community has a chance. Well, all the community has a chance to see how these things are going moving forward. I think Virginia Park and my other neighbors hit the nail on the head with it. We all in the same boat. Thanks.
Thank you, Byron. We appreciate you. I want to just note, like as Byron said, making NEZ funds available. That's a very great specific recommendation. We want as many of those recommendations surfaced as possible. And I do want to note that when we put these kind of starting points in front of you, this is about expanding these programs to make them more accessible to people who are impacted by this, and doing more than what was suggested by the administration when they just wanted to kind of give people priority preference to some programs. So this is our starting place here is that at the very least they need to be expanded. And I just want to also note on one thing that Byron said about making homes more energy efficient, right? And when we talk about most of our neighborhoods still need housing values raised, energy efficiency. So thank you, Byron. We want to take one more comment on this slide, then we'll move to our last slide before we start to wrap up our breakout groups here. And thank you, everybody. Please also see, again, the chat box, some great stuff there being posted by our scribe, Sonja. You also see some information from Michelle Oberholzer about getting an exemption this year for folks who need that resource. So please see the chat box for some resources. Let me hear from Scotty Bowman. Scotty, can you unmute your, Scotty, can you unmute yourself?
Hello. My question is, and I don't know if anyone actually listening on the call has a direct answer to this, but I actually was chair of a CAC that met with the mayor right at the end of last year. And one thing that came up, I did bring up the specific proposal that I also heard Council President Sheffield mention, which was reimbursing people by giving them credits to property taxes if they had already been able to keep their homes but were struggling because of overtaxation. And the mayor insisted that some direct correlation between what credits they get and how they were overtaxed, that somehow violated state law. And I wasn't really clear on which. I am following up to find out which law that violates. But does anyone here have a response to that or a counter argument to that?
Thank you, Scotty. We appreciate that. I unfortunately don't have an exact response to you on that. I do want to note that in regard, because that sounds similar to the space where the mayor's office has said that they can't offer direct cash compensation. The governor herself has put out a statement saying that in her office's legal opinion that cash compensation could be made available. So there are clear differences of opinion there, and that response has been posted by Council President Sheffield's office in the chat box if you want to look at that. If anyone else has specific comments on Scotty's response, if you could add those in the chat, thank you. We want to get to our last slide here, and we're going to take 1 to 2 more comments. We asked again that folks keep these short. We're moving into the end of our breakout session here, and we do want to hear from. It looks like we have 2 members of council in our group right now, so we want to leave a little bit of space. Affected folks who are not exempt, who are not eligible for the exemption. So again, they were in that range of people who were overtaxed, but this particular group of people were not eligible for the exemption. Any differences in what you think should be offered to this group of people? Any more ideas to supplement what's here on the sheet in front of us?
I'll interject quickly, Mark, to also say we should start trying to figure out our 3 points of agreement since we're coming to the end of our time before we give it over to the 2 council people.
Great, thank you so much, Bernadette. So look, can we get one more comment here on any difference for affected non-exempt folks, any compensation options? I want to hear from, can we ask Loretta Parker to unmute?
Yes, hello, you hear me?
Hi, Loretta. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, what I had to say is dealing with the exemption or people who are not able to be exempt, that yes, they should be compensated. Not only that, there should be like more available programs for people to able to get into, to able to fix up their homes or whatever they need, work on, because that's a difficult thing. It's hard to find people to actually really want to work on your home. And you have to understand this, I'm a first-time home buyer. I bought my home from the land bank, and I had a big, it was a mess. I bought this house from someone, thinking someone owned the house. So I did everything I was supposed to do, and then finding out that through DTE, the land bank owned it. So I had to go through a whole long thing to go through the process to actually had to show proof that I paid for the house and everything else. And once I was able to close out on the house and what have you, yes, I got a lot of work done on my house, but this is not even about me. This is about everybody in this district, in the 5th district. You know, I see a lot of people buying these houses, they fixing them up, but a lot of people are not living in them. And we need a lot of people. We need to be giving these houses to people who wants to live in them, who want to raise their families in them. See, I have a family, so I'm raising my family in my home.
Mm-hmm.
You get where I'm coming from with that? And not only that, taxes, if you're not able to get taxed, they should have to do some type of pay agreement or something like that. And then the land bank, something needs to be done with the land bank, because there is no way in the world that people should able to sell houses they don't own, or selling
Right.
houses that
Absolutely.
a person owns and they're able to take it. You know, it don't make any sense. Like, it's a lot of stuff going on, you know what I'm saying, especially in this
Yep.
district, that should not be going on in this district. It should be
Thank,
programs should be qualified, not just for seniors, for low income people, or for people who are
mm-hmm.
struggling. You know what I mean? Even on their
Mm-hmm.
taxes,
Mm-hmm.
the home repair, it's a lot. Especially if you get a house from a land bank, you have to literally put over $100,000 in the house to even get it up and running properly. It should be some type of
Mm-hmm.
some type of money they should be offering people who are buying these houses, who are trying to live in these houses, who trying to bring the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You see what you see
Thanks.
where I'm coming from with that? People, I remember people, it was no such thing that a house that was empty. Now I see
Right.
houses
Right.
that are empty. And then not only that, we have a rat problem over here. It's
Yep.
ridiculous.
I want.
It's just
I want to go
terrible.
ahead and wrap you up there, Loretta. I appreciate you. And you're right. The rats, that's one of the problems with these demolitions. They flood our neighborhoods with things like this. And you're I hear you saying something that was consistent with other folks about home repair. So I want to kind of sum up maybe our 3 main points and see if we got some general affirmation on these before we pass the microphone here. And again, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who shared something here. All of you who spoke, Ms. Lyles, Loretta, folks from Virginia Park Community, and Herman Kiefer. We appreciate all your comments, and we appreciate everybody who didn't get to speak filling out the survey, please, so we can capture you. Please fill out the survey, and please also, if you have a story to share, again, you heard time and again today that people felt alone and isolated and felt like this was only happening to them. And so, if you share your story, that's how we make it clearer to people that this was an epidemic in our city. So I want to just offer 3 things that I heard as like very consistent. And if anybody vehemently disagrees, I'll ask you to say in the chat so I can respond to that. But I heard, number 1, that everybody, just baseline, everybody should be compensated, whether you were eligible for exemption or not. All of these, as many compensation options as possible should be made available to you if you were affected or foreclosed. Number 2, I heard many times more money for home repair grants. We said people don't want to just get the worst homes from the land bank with no resources to fix them. We've heard about how much these land banks home costs to rehab, and we know that that these homes have faced a lot of decay once they've been vacated. So more money for home repair grants, we heard consistently. And then we heard ideas that were in the space of helping people recoup the wealth that was lost, with interest. So, again, if you lost your home to this foreclosure crisis 10 years ago, and your neighborhood has now rebounded in home values by 300%, then, you lost out on that rebound, and someone else is benefiting from it. So the city needs to acknowledge that. And that could be done through expanding things like the NEZ to people who've been living here a long time or otherwise. Does that kind of capture what people heard from each other? Anybody hear anything different that you feel like we really need to share in the big group? Maybe add it to the chat. Let's do a roll call in the chat. Does everyone agree with what we heard here? Everybody across the board should be compensated with as many options as possible. More money for home repair grants to keep people in their homes who have stayed here throughout all of these crises Detroit has faced. And when we talk about recouping wealth, it needs to be done with some sort of interest in mind. People need to be paid for what they lost in the time since they lost their home, since it was taken. And that could look like tax abatements. We heard that several times. That could look like tax abatements, NEZ expansions, et cetera. So let me close there. I'm seeing a lot of yeses, a lot of dittos, plus pluses. So we appreciate everyone's feedback again today. We have about 5 minutes left. I want to offer the floor to our council member at large, Coleman Young, first, and then to our council president, Mary Sheffield, to close us out. Councilmember Young, if you can unmute yourself, we've got about 2 minutes. Councilmember Young, if you're still with us, can you unmute yourself?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Okay, can you see me?
Can folks, we can see you. Go ahead. There you
There
go.
I go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? First of all, I just want to thank Mr. Crane. Wonderful job facilitating. Want to thank Mr. Tunde. Thank you so much, and the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. Honored to be here. You know, and I just want to thank Councilwoman, Council President Mary Sheffield as well for having me here. A house is made of brick and mortar, but it's made by the people who live there. And I think that for everyone, a young lady was just talking, and she was just saying that, you know, people pour up their blood, their sweat, their tears, their toil into having these homes. And for them to be taken by overtaxation, the overassessment on the most vulnerable that we have in our society. And you know, they say that a society is judged based on how we treat our senior citizens and most vulnerable. And we could do better. And I think the fact that people lost their houses, lost their homes, and now we're living in a time where the city seems more like it's telling people what they can't do or what they're not going to do, rather than what we should do and what we are going to do to make people whole. You cannot tax people by over $600 million and due to your own negligence, and then turn around and say you're not going to rectify that situation. And that's why I'm here. If you don't know anything else about me, know this: I will move heaven and earth, and I will fight rain, sleet, snow, 30 degrees below, 10 toes down, to make sure we do all we can to provide as many restoration and as many opportunities, as many restoration as well as restitution opportunities for the citizens who were wrongly overassessed and overtaxed. I want to say again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I also look forward to working with you in the future on providing solutions, as well as Council President Sheffield for what she's done for us. And I look forward to working with you in the future to get this done together. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Councilman Young. We appreciate you listening in to the residents today and offering those comments. I want to now offer the floor to to District 5 Council Member and Council President Mary Sheffield. Council President Sheffield, please.
Thank you, District 5 resident Mark Crane. Great job facilitating us today. I enjoyed listening in to all of our residents and those who are joining us outside of District 5. I'm just fired up, ready to get some solutions done. I am really encouraged by the representation of the entire council who has been in each of the breakout rooms, our at-large members who have lended their support around this issue. And so I believe that we can get something done this term. And we're looking forward to incorporating all of your suggestions into something that comes before council this year that we can take up. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for being engaged. I did want to also mention that we will continue this discussion at the monthly sessions that the coalition will be hosting. The first one, again, will be Saturday, February the 5th at the Commons. This will be hosted for District 5, Saturday, February 5th. I think that's at 10 a.m. If not, I will make sure we get it out. I don't have the flyer in front of me. I do apologize. But anyway, the coalition will be hosting monthly meetings to continue the conversation. The first one will be for District 5 on Saturday, February 5th at 10 a.m. at the Commons on the east side of Detroit. Looking forward to seeing you all there. And if there are District 5 residents that would like to send stuff directly to our office as well, our office did put in the chat that you can reach us directly and join our mailing list and updates from our office by texting MSDET5 to 468311. Again, you can text MSDET5 to 468311, and that is the way that you can stay up to date on all things related to District 5, and we will put that in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Council President Sheffield. Thank you for spending today with us. Thank you for your presentation earlier, your remarks today, and for being a champion on this issue. You know, we appreciate your leadership. I want to start to close here, and in a moment, I'm going to pass it back to our host, MJ, because I know that all of the folks are going to be coming back into our main room pretty shortly. But again, I just want to thank everyone from District 5 and everyone outside of District 5 who listened in on our session. I want to reiterate one last time. I know that we had a lot of folks who wanted to speak and we couldn't get to everyone. Please see the survey in the chat box. Please take the time to fill that out. And as we move forward with this work, you can plug into the coalition and all of these goals that we have. You can join this work, and specifically, you can join the listening sessions that Council President shared with us, and the first being February the 5th at 10 a.m. at the Commons. So again, thank you so much. And at this point, I want to pass the microphone back to our host, MJ.
We actually, Mark, have 5 more minutes. So on the timer, I'd like to say one more thing in this last 5 minutes we have. I just want to first start by saying, you all, didn't Mark do an amazing job, y'all? Come on, y'all.
Oh, that's kind.
Excellent, excellent facilitation. Thank you, Sonja, as well, who's working the chat. I want to thank Council President and also Councilman Coleman Young Jr. for joining us. It's important for politicians to be present and hear the voices of community. So I want to say thank you to that. But since we do have 4 minutes left, I want to get people's voice on that second proposal that I mentioned in my talk about suturing the wound. Remember I said, because the point is we're still being illegally assessed and it doesn't make sense to talk about compensation while we're still bleeding. Let's suture the wound. So what do y'all think? Again, just don't raise your hands because we got 4 minutes. Just come off of mute with what you got to say. The proposal was a council of experts. So council has the firepower to understand when the assessments are wrong. Second was forcing both the assessment division and this group of experts to produce an assessment ratio study, which is the main tool used to figure out if the assessments are equitable or not. And the third part was to, in the years where it is determined by council, when they're given this information and they make the determination that assessments are inequitable and illegal, that the city will not move homes to the county for foreclosure. That's the 3-pronged solution on the table. Come off of mute and let me know what y'all think about that. Are we on board with that? Do you want to see, do you have a better way to suture the wound? Let's hear from folks in this 3 minutes we have left.
So Professor, everyone does not have the ability to unmute themselves, but Wilma Butler has raised her hand, so we will have her unmute.
Oh, I see. Go ahead, Ms. Butler.
Good afternoon. You know, I'm thinking that the compensation is good, but there needs to be, you know, a little more, I don't know how you say it. I think that the raw land is good, but I think vacant buildings should be included also, because a lot of people lost a lot of vacant buildings and it was because of the assessment department. Now, I went down and talked to the mayor several times from 2014 to 2016, trying to get my property, you know, values fixed. They changed property values on my house 10 times in 1 year, 2014 to 2015. And we never did get that equitable, well, we never did get it finished. What I did was I filed a complaint with the ACLU. And a couple of years ago, they came up and said they had a lawsuit against the city. It was on TV. It wasn't sent to me in the mail. I just happened to be watching Channel 4 News. And I was able to.
Can you put in so what we have, what I want to make sure everyone has, Sonia, you could put it in the chat. Everybody needs to know about the law. There's been a lot of people here talking about the law, of its illegal legality. We have a whole memo that we prepared explaining the whole lawsuits, the law and all of that, why the ACLU lawsuit, Ms. Butler, that you just mentioned. So Sonia, you could put that resource in the chat so everybody has that memo explaining exactly why the law has not, you know, been on our side in this particular issue. And I want to also say we only have 1 minute left. Thank you so much, Ms. Butler. We only have 1 minute left, and I want to say that it looks like there's a problem with the survey. I've been seeing a couple of that on the chat, so we will take care of that on our end and look into that. Has anyone? Can you raise your hand if you successfully filled out the survey? Did anybody successfully fill it out? Okay, you did. All right, so it's
we had a
working.
lot of folks who did. Yep.
Okay, I think the problem is you actually have to move on, select one in each category, and so people are maybe a little bit confused about that. But it looks like the survey is working. It might just not be as user friendly as it should be. All right, in our 50 seconds that we have left, Mark, you want to take it back?
Sure. Thank you, Professor Atuahene, and thanks y'all for being willing to give some feedback on that next piece. So again, we're closing up here, and I definitely didn't mean to take any time from our group, but as we close, just want to reiterate just a few things. And sorry if we've been a little bit of broken records on this, but do fill out the survey. You all are going to get a follow-up email that'll have what you need that you didn't get today in terms of the resources that are available that maybe you didn't catch them in the chat. Again, please do share these resources so we can let more and more Detroiters know what's been happening, let people know who were affected by this, that they weren't alone, and we can let everybody know that this coalition is open to any Detroiter who wants to fight back on this issue. So thank you again, District 5.
Awesome. Mark, I'm going to ask you to do the report back in this
Absolutely.
session. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, thank you, everyone. Amazing job. Again, Mark. We have folks coming back into the room in about 10 seconds. We are going to jump back up to hundreds of participants here in the main room. So let's give them a moment to come in. Thank you. We hope that your breakout experience was valuable. We're seeing folks, the numbers are shooting back up again. And we've had phenomenal attendance today. Kudos to the residents of Detroit for prioritizing this on a Saturday. The importance of dignity restoration. And thanks to the coalition for putting this event on. So folks are coming back in. Thank you for rejoining us, everyone. Thank you. So we are going to be moving now into our plenary session where we are going to get summaries from each of the breakouts and the districts that were represented. And for district, we're going to get started for District 1 and 3. The breakout said 1 and 2, but for District 1 and 3, that summary is going to be provided by Phyllis Edwards. And
no, that's not right, MJ. It's going to go by district. 1 and 3 were just in the same room. Oh, yes, but they have to give the, yes, that's right.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll pass it to you, Phyllis. Thank you.
Good afternoon. What a robust conversation we had, and so many great comments and such a plethora of participation. I am excited to have been in that room. I learned so much from my fellow residents. One of the things that came up was the idea, they agreed with all of the options that were before us, but what was so interesting, it was the added comments around one, a legacy fund. You have individuals who parents were impacted by the overassessment. However, some of those parents were casualties of COVID. And so is there a possibility for a legacy fund for those individuals who are still living in the city of Detroit that their parents or one of their relatives were impacted by this overassessment, but they have since transitioned? And so that was something that needs to be brought to the table. The other thing, excuse me, was around the acquisitions of the lots. So you can buy a lot anywhere for $1, but there's the possibility of not having to pay taxes on that lot on the table, or should be a part of that compensation. One of the other things that came up that we thought was important, that individuals were overassessed. They paid those taxes, but for some reason they have moved out of the city of Detroit, or they're not in their homes and not paying taxes anymore. Is there any way for those folks who were overassessed, paid those taxes, to get compensation for the overassessment? And then, of course, we had that conversation around lots When you submit your application for a lot, you have to define what you're going to do on that lot. But in terms of other individuals being able to build on that lot, to maybe increase their home size or extend so that they can create rental properties to increase the generational wealth. As I said before, they were all in agreement with the current options that we had, but we just wanted to expand that a little bit more to cover some areas that had not previously been given thought to. And that was District 1 and District 3.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to give kudos to Phyllis for getting her summary done in less than 5 minutes. We are taking note of the time that it takes folks to finish. So thank you for that, for getting that done. At this time, we are now going to move to District 2. And District 2, the representative is going to be Kim Hunter. If you could come forward at this time.
Hello. First of all, thank you, Detroit, for showing up again, as folks have been saying. Sincerely appreciate that. The three main things that came from my breakout room is, number one, folks wanted all the options for everybody, everywhere that there was an option available. Some folks prioritized some of the options. They would say it was 3, 4, or 5. They said that 5 was more important than 3, or 4 was more important than 3, and they prioritized them that way. So that was one thing. They wanted all the options. They, similar to what I'm going to go with 4 here, reiterate what Phyllis said, folks who have moved out need to be dealt with. So family members of folks who have survived, if their loved one was deceased, the family members of the surviving person should be compensated for the trauma and the illegal taking of the home. And also counseling. This came up in context of there needing to be a more individualized menu. We need to see where folks are financially, mentally, spiritually, and provide some counseling for those people, and see if the option menus actually fit their particular situation. Because folks, this has put folks in a real trick bag. Sorry to drop to 1960s verbiage, but in a lot of different kind of ways. And we need to find out specifically, do these options fit their case? And that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that. Okay, so now we are going to move on to District 4, and that summary will be provided by Yolanda Jackson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Yolanda Jackson. I had the pleasure of facilitating the District 4 room. I think this is going to be pretty short and sweet. There were 3 points or proposals that I think came out of our conversation. I think one, folks definitely agree that individuals and communities should be in charge of determining the appropriate compensation to be made whole. There were, a lot of story sharing, a lot of comments about, folks who lived in these homes that have been foreclosed on that are no longer standing, and how, do we be made whole when, this structure is no longer there. And, there is nobody in this world who can, determine how those folks can be made whole, so that they definitely should be in the driver's seat. The next one, request a program review audit of the property tax assessor's office, as well as the land bank. It is so hard to get access to information and data around, the assessors, how they're doing property tax assessments, or, what the rules are, and how, what land bank homes can we get, or what's even happening with land bank homes. as we're thinking about putting that on the compensation list, just really thinking about, how these systems already exist and how we need to do some reform around that before we even put these things on the table for folks to choose from. And then the last one, a lot of folks were, advocates let's say advocates, but interested in the land bank non-rehab homes as long as they came with a home repair grant, but feel that, there also needs to be some reform upfront around the time that is provided for folks to bring those homes up to code. I think right now it's 6 months. Folks argue that you need at least 18 months to repair them, with one person stating that you need 1 month to even live in the house before you can realize everything that's wrong with it. And also when it comes to home repair grants, allowing residents to vet and select their own contractors. So those were the things that came out of the District 4 conversation.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Wanda, for that. Okay, we are going to go now to District 5 and bring back up Mark Crane. Thank you. Please unmute yourself, Mark.
Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone in District 5 who participated. We definitely heard some similar themes as some of the other districts, of course. Number one, this idea that as many compensation options should be on the table as possible for each category, that we should sort of reduce some of the distinctions, and allow people in the name of dignity restoration to have as many options as possible, period. We also heard a lot about home repair grants and making those available to people, about the need for these grants to really be large enough to actually modernize homes. We know that we have a lot of old housing stock, and a lot of these homes values, the cost to rehab them has gone up significantly. People talked about green retrofits, making these homes more sustainable, lowering our energy costs. A lot of us pay high energy costs in the city. And then folks mentioned even including 1 year of homeowners insurance in that amount that you get for home repair grants, because that needs to be acquired for folks when they're even trying to rehab these homes. So more money for home repair grants across the board. And then lastly, we had a bit of a recurring theme around recouping the wealth that people have lost that extends beyond just the home itself, the property or parcel that they lost, but extends to the interest that they would have gained from that property value rebounding over the last decade, or that extends to other ways that this loss in wealth was greater than just the value of the home at that moment when it was taken. So we talked about things like tax abatements for current residents who have dealt with this issue, even until or tax credits, as was mentioned by Council President. We talked about expanding certain opportunities like the NEZ, not maybe others, but making sure that programs that were in place to help folks who moved in after a certain year are sort of made retroactively available to longer term Detroiters who need support. So those were the top three things: making sure that as many options are available, putting more and more money into the home repair grants to keep people here who have stayed here, who wanted to stay here, and recouping more than just the wealth that was lost in that specific moment. So again, thank you to District 5 for all the input.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for those comments. At this time, we are going to move to District 6, and that will be reported on by Aaron Stanley. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I had the pleasure of serving as a scribe for the District 6 room. I'm Aaron Stanley. I work at Eastside Community Network, and our facilitator was Joanna Velasquez from Detroit Action. We had 23 great people in our room, great conversation. Councilmember Gabriela Santiago Romero was also there, as well as her staff. They listened. They also shared some resources and kind of let us know how to get more involved with their office. So we appreciate them for that. There was a lot of support for dignity restoration and impacted people being at the center of this, deciding how they should be compensated. The three main takeaways from the compensation menu. The first was that we need better communications and accessibility around the existing programs that exist. We talked a lot about the property tax exemption, home repair programs, and just how much red tape and barriers exist and how little people actually know that they're eligible for. So that's something that compensation needs to center, is like whatever programs we come up with, we need to make sure that there's no red tape or barriers to helping people access them. The second big takeaway was, we just in general, this has been said before, but we need more home repair resources. That was a big priority. People really liked the home repair grant as an option that wouldn't require credit scores like the loan does, and that, you know, would be free money instead of money they have to pay back to repair their homes. And then, yeah, again, it needs to be accessible. And that includes help connecting with contractors, engaging with Detroit at Work, knowing which contractors are available and recommended. You know, so not just here's money, but here's money plus let's help you actually get these repairs done. The third big one is that people point out that overtaxation is also connected to just ongoing displacement and gentrification, and in District 6 being so close to downtown and Midtown, that's a big concern that people brought up. And so just the idea that, you know, compensation should also be occurring at like a community level. So that means like ways to protect gentrification and protect people from that are still here from being displaced and having their taxes because their taxes are too high, as well as investments at the neighborhood level that are equitable and that people in the neighborhood, you know, help drive. So that's it. I want to thank everyone again for their participation.
Thank you. Thank you, Erin, for that. Reporting from District 6. And now we will have District 7, which is going to be reported on from Jen Disla. Thank you.
MJ. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody that was in our group. You know, as named earlier, everyone did have a lot of consensus around what we're offering in the menus currently, but also as I named earlier, the home repair grant, you know, making sure that it is large enough to ensure that homes are able to get restored in the way that they need to be restored. Also in regards to just, you know, this overtaxation, what would it mean to not pay taxes moving forward? Is that a tax credit? Is that grandfathering folks that were overassessed in the city for homes? And what does that mean moving forward with property taxes was also discussed. We also discussed about how this has impacted the community emotionally and the need for having counseling services, and a lot of folks having disabilities and inabilities to really have access to services that they need in our community because of this crisis. We also talked about language barriers and how that can also be a way of ensuring that not only that applications are in English, but they're in multiple languages to be more accessible for folks. And lastly, we wanted to ensure that there was more accuracy and transparency in our taxation system moving forward. So we talked about, you know, current tax statements, maybe moving forward, having the ability to really see how they're calculated and really have the opportunity to have more transparency in our property tax system. Thanks, I'll pass it back to you, MJ.
Thank you, Jen, thank you for that. All right, I want everybody to give yourself a snap. You've done an amazing job this last hour, contributing your thoughts. These are such important data points, stories, facts that the coalition is going to gather all together to help make the case for the residents of Detroit, this very, very important dignity restoration that has to happen. Thank you for your participation. We have one more action that we want you guys to do. Get your blood going, because again, the coalition is not talk, it's about action. And so at this time, we would like you to sign up for the Property Tax Appeal Project. So to figure out if you're eligible and to sign up for services, you're going to fill out the interest form, which the link is going to be provided in the chat, or you can email at law-propertytax@umich.edu, umich.edu, or call 313-438-8698. Take the time to sign up for the Property Tax Appeal Project, and that link should be in the chat for you. Okay, please do that last action. Again, this has been phenomenal. I'm so appreciative of the coalition having me to assist with such a nationwide project. This is a momentous, historic thing that you guys are doing. And so again, kudos to the coalition for this work. It's my pleasure at this time to bring back up President Sheffield for some closing remarks, and we will send it to you now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, Detroit. As mentioned, you all really showed up today. We had well over 600 people who were in and out of this session today. So thank you for showing up on a Saturday to talk about a very important issue that touches so many people. I want you all to know that I am and will remain committed to ending the overassessments in Detroit, restoring dignity, and making those impacted whole and giving people a voice throughout this entire process. I again want to thank all of my colleagues who are on today from each of the council districts, our members at large. Most of the members, if not all, are on today, or they have representation from their office. And I can tell you that I have talked with each and every one of our members, and they are committed to resolving this issue, which is very, very exciting to know. I do want to mention that I think there were a couple of other elected representatives that were on today. I know State Senator Stephanie Chang is on. I think I may have seen school board member Sherry Gay Dagnogo, so I want to mention her as well. And anyone else who was present, we appreciate your time. Congresswoman Rasheeda Talib, the coalition, and everyone who participated today. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to bringing a ordinance before council soon and ensuring that you all are part of that process. I just was informed that State Senator Santana was on as well too. Thank you. I don't want to miss anyone. So if any elected officials were on, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. So let's get united around this issue. Let's continue to use and elevate our voices. And I'm looking forward to a sound piece of legislation that we collectively as a council can move forward to advance this issue. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Let's continue the work.
The Coalition for Property Tax Justice would like to thank the following members: Bridging Communities, Community Development Advocates of Detroit, Central Detroit Christian Community Development, Detroit Block Works, Detroit Justice Center, Detroit Jews for Justice, Dream of Detroit, Detroit Action, Mack Avenue Community Church, Moses, Neighbors Building Brightmoor, Regrid, Street Democracy, Eastside Community Network, We the People of Detroit, and New Era Detroit. Thank you for your partnership.
Thank you everyone for coming. It's officially over. Thank you all.